So let's get started today. We're excited to share more about what we've been working on for the last couple of years. As I said, this is a culmination of a lot of talented engineers' efforts over the past 2 years to deliver cyber resilience across both on-prem, public cloud, and SaaS environments. I'll be joined with Simon Taylor, the founder and CEO of HYCU, Andy Fernandez, the Senior Director of Product Marketing, and Subbiah Sundaram, the SVP of Product. So without further ado, let me turn things over to Simon Taylor, the founder and CEO of HYCU.
Thank you, Don. Hi, everybody. Welcome. I hope everyone's doing well today. We're very excited about the following presentation. We're very excited about the work that's gone on to change the face of cyber resiliency for the data protection industry. For those of you who know HYCU, over the last few years, try to get my clicker going here. All right. Over the last few years, we've discovered something, which is that the world of technology and data has changed drastically. You know, if we think about 20 years ago, this was a world that was entirely on-prem. We had massive amounts of data sitting in our basements. We were reliant inherently on the storage, the servers, the SANs that we were bringing into our business. You know, but if we think about 15 years ago, things started to change, didn't they? We started to see the rise of public cloud. We saw Google, we saw Azure, we saw AWS, we saw Benioff come out with Salesforce, and all of a sudden people started to say, maybe we don't need to keep everything in the basement anymore. The world continued to change as those public clouds started to expand. They began to say, hey, we want to be more sticky. We want you to be able to rely on us as a hyperscaler for more than just storage. And all of a sudden, DBaaS, PaaS, and the world of data started to fragment even more. About 2 years ago, HYCU did a thorough review of the state of the modern data estate, and what we found was astonishing. The average mid-market company today has their data in no less than 312 different locations. I want you to think about how much more complex your job is today than the jobs of those who were in your position 20 years ago. You know, I always like to tell the story of my father, who was the CIO of Putnam Investments for about a decade. And when I think back to the reality that was existing for him and for his team, it was all about how do you buy more storage and put it in your own data center. But today, because of the rise of SaaS, because of the rise of DBaaS and BaaS, the world is fundamentally different. HYCU, as the world's #1 leader in SaaS data protection, understood this difference. We understood it 2 years ago when we launched an entirely new way of thinking about data protection with the R-Cloud platform. What we said is that in a world where we've got so much data in so many different places, we need to make it easy to view. We've got to give you total visibility. So we invented R-Graph. We said that you had to have total protection. So we added a marketplace to make it easy, where you could actually go after and protect over 86 different SaaS services. We said that you've got to have total recovery. We made it incredibly easy, no matter what data source you're using, to, with one click of the button, recover that data. And finally, we gave you total control and freedom because we weren't selling storage. And we've stayed true to the HYCU core philosophies and principles over the last couple of years. This is what we've become well known for. And today I'm proud to say that HYCU has over 4,600 different customers in 78 countries. So thank you to our friends and our partners for making R-Cloud a reality and making HYCU a reality and a success. But there's a problem. Since the invention of R-Cloud, and since we launched our mission to build a safer world through data protection, the world has become a far more dangerous place. In fact, 2 years ago, when we launched R-Cloud, we said that there was a ransomware attack every 11 seconds. Today, it's every 3 seconds, and it costs $22 on the dark web in order to execute an attack against you, our customers and partners. But it's more than just ransomware today. The world of cybersecurity has fundamentally changed. It's fundamentally shifted from a world in which you had a few bad actors who would execute an on-prem attack to a world in which we're seeing a whole host of far more sophisticated, far more easy to execute, and far more hard to defend against attacks across on-prem, public cloud, and SaaS. So while the entire world has been sitting there screaming the ransomware story, ransomware is coming, it's bad, it's going to get you. Let's look at the reality of what's happened. Let's look at the MGM attack, where social engineering allowed people to get in and get the keys to the kingdom. Let's look at the Snowflake attack, where customers who did nothing wrong, who had all the right best practices, had a supply chain attack that got into their Snowflake tenant and took over their businesses. This is a scary world. This is a world in which on-prem cyber resiliency no longer does the job. And that's a real problem, because we've gone through and cataloged the entirety of the data protection industry's expertise in cyber resiliency. There are dozens of companies out there today who will tell you we are the best at cyber resiliency. We are the ones that can solve your problems. But what do they really mean by that? They mean they can stop it on-prem. All of the cloud data and all of the SaaS data that is currently being held in 80% of the world's data silos is completely vulnerable and completely open to attack. And that's what scares us most at HYCU. We believe that it is our job to build a safer world. We believe that HYCU's mission has to be to figure out how we protect our customers across all those data silos, whether it's 300 or 3,000. And so with that, what we like to say here at HYCU is that actually the backup industry is offering limited liability while organizations need full coverage to survive. So think of it like this. You're an insurance provider, and you go out there and you're selling limited liability insurance. You're basically saying, if these following three things happen, you're covered. But if someone breaks into your house and steals all your jewelry, I'm sorry, sir, we can't help you. That is the approach that the data protection industry has taken to cyber resiliency, by saying, if your data is on-prem, we can extract the metadata, we can do some threat analytics on it, we can tell you if there's going to be a malware attack. But if the data was sourced at the SaaS level, if it was sourced at the cloud level, there's nothing we can do. It's the nothing we can do that HYCU is here to stop. Because we believe at HYCU that no matter where your data sits, you should have the same level of cyber resilience and the same level of protection. And with that, I'm thrilled to introduce HYCU R-Shield, the world's first built-in cyber resilience for HYCU R-Cloud. This is an entirely different way of looking at data resiliency. We're not just focused on threat detection and malware detection. We're going to provide that, but we're going to go so much further. In fact, what we do here at HYCU today and what we're announcing is the world's most comprehensive, true cyber resiliency for total coverage. And we're going to show you how we do this in three different ways. The first is we're going to make sure that you are always protected. That's right, with 86 different integrations, HYCU offers 10 times the integrations for backup and recovery across on-prem, public cloud, and SaaS. We're going to show you how we're now going to take that to the next level, how we're going to make sure that no matter where that data is, you're going to get the threat detection you deserve. We're going to talk about always observing, how we can observe your data and we can make sure that you, the customer, are completely supported throughout the entire data journey. And finally, we're going to keep everything ready. We're going to make sure that whether it is hiding your data from your enemies, whether it is making sure that all of your data is locked down and immutable, or whether or not you want to make sure that you actually can discover which backups are under threat and which are harmed so you can recover safely. We're going to take you through that entire process, and we're going to show you today the world's first and only true and total cyber resilience. Thank you very much. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Subbiah Sundaram, who's going to walk us through the ins and outs of HYCU R-Shield. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Simon. Let's actually go through the following one. One of the things which Simon talked to you about the R-Cloud platform, right? The key thing we did was when we built R-Shield, we said we didn't want to actually have as a bolt-on, meaning as an add-on to that particular one. We said it has to be integral part of the platform. Because one of the things with HYCU we do is we want to make sure everything is simple. That's one of the philosophies Simon has incorporated into all of our thinking, saying, how do you make life simple? Because anytime it's a separate standalone solution, it becomes hard to manage. That's why we said cyber resilience should be built into the entire fabric of the platform. That's why it's there. It's a shield across the entire data which we actually protect for customers. Let's talk about the first step, which Simon was talking about, right? First is how do you keep the data protected? But before you keep the data protected, the first thing, if you look at the industry stat, 94% of the attackers, first thing they do is to come after your backup target. People wonder why, right? Because that is the backup, right? In case something bad happens to your source, you want to go to your backup. That's what people you're going after. So these criminals are getting smarter. They first come, attack the backup target, delete it, and then go and encrypt the source. Now the customers are in trouble. That's what we want to actually stop, right? So the first thing we said was, how do we make sure the infrastructure, because now you say, okay, so backup is you want to protect your backup. What is the first thing in the most important thing? The service itself, it should be resilient. Let's look at our traditional architecture people talk about, right? People talk about lots of moving parts, right? If you look at a full enterprise backup solution, a lot of times customers have to run 7 or 8 servers to run the whole infrastructure. People say, so what's the problem? That's what you have to do in this one. The key thing is, the broader the attack surface, we all know the probability of attacking is easier, right? Getting through is much more easier. All you have to find is one weakest link and people can get in. That's the challenge. That's why with HYCU, what we try to tell you is that, we got to simplify. We have to simplify here. So that's one of the reasons, if you look at in HYCU, we built, as Simon lovingly calls it, building the enterprise solution with a military-grade solution. Because we, as a company, have had the fortune of working with lots of different armed forces organizations who are extremely security conscious, right? Based on that, what we did was we built a very resilient infrastructure. It is built with it's a hardened appliance. We try to close every possible door. So that's the core infrastructure we built in, right? And this is it's a battle-tested thing because it's used by all of the armed forces in the United States, right? That is one thing there. And HYCU is the only one, for example, from a certification perspective, we are the only ones who actually have a DISA STIC certification, which is DISA being, in case people are not familiar, it's a Defense Information Agency, right? And they look at the architecture, they look at the security and then say, is this safe? That is something we have actually done. Those are some of the things which we do. The last thing which I'd probably tell about, which is what we call backup data cloaking. We want to make sure your data is always safe. So first is the infrastructure. You create a very solid infrastructure. The second thing, how do you make sure your backup data is never seen by your enemies? That's a very important thing. Who's the enemy here? It's the attacker, right? The first thing the attacker wants to do is get to the data. The key thing what we have to do is how do you prevent it? That is something which we have spent quite a lot of time. Let's talk about it. So one thing before that, I probably want to actually talk one other point there. When we talk about the backup data cloaking, it's a very, very important point there. The key thing is that one is the building the resilient infrastructure. When we talk about backup data cloaking, one is the initial setup itself, or when our team actually helps customers and the way our platform itself behaves is that it says you want to have a separation of the backup data from the production data. Why? Because in case something bad happens to the production, your backup is not impacted. That's there. And it's not a one-time thing. The system continuously monitors to make sure that your backup data is not seen by anybody else. It sounds like a very simple thing, but it's a very critical piece of protection in this one. That's something we do, what we call backup data cloaking, or people in the industry probably might think of as backup posture management. This is something built in the platform. It's not a one-time thing. It is continuously we had to evolve, and this is something we always look forward for customer feedback and how do we make it better. That's the first step. The second thing, what comes down to people talk about it, the bigger thing is that we talk about traditionally from an on-prem infrastructure there, but there is 60% of the data you use on a day-to-day basis is sitting in the cloud. So let's actually ask Andy, why don't you just come in and share a little bit there, Andy?
Absolutely.
What do we do to protect? Yeah.
Thank you, Subbiah. For those in the audience, if you have any questions, we'd love to hear them in the Q&A. We'll make sure to address them at the end. And even if you have chats and you want to provide some feedback, we're here to listen. But to Subbiah's point, one of the core tenets of R-Shield is always to be protected. Your backup infrastructure, your backup data must be protected. It's a high ROI target for a hacker. But what about the rest of your data? take a step back for a second and think, 5, 10, 15 years ago, as Simon mentioned, the majority of your business applications were hosted on-prem. Your Git repositories, your CI/CD, your knowledge base, your file sharing, the way that your team communicated was all hosted as server or data center. Today, if you think about it, it's not just Microsoft 365 or Salesforce or Dynamics that you're using, it's your entire application tech stack is being used as a service. It's not hosted on-prem anymore. So think for a second about that data. What would happen today if somebody in your organization deleted a Git repository? What would happen if there was an insider threat? What happened to certain parts of your knowledge base? This is low-hanging fruit. If I'm an attacker, am I going to go after a section of the organization that's extremely fortified, that is protected, that has everything they need to be able to recover because of years of learning that's fully battle tested? Or am I going to go after Bob in HR and understand what they're using in DocuSign? Or somebody in the financial services team, where maybe MFA is the only layer of protection they have, and definitely no means of recovery. And when I say no means of recovery, this is exactly what we mean. It is no secret, and I think it's an industry standard. Everyone in the audience pretty much understands this. Data in the cloud is still your responsibility. Think of it as a parking garage. What do you expect from the garage? Well, I'm going to park my car. I want the lights to be on. I want to be able to pay. And I want to make sure that the car is still there when I come back. But if you leave your window open, somebody scratches it, it's on you. It's on your insurance. The parking garage takes no liability for what happens to your car. A cloud platform is the exact same thing. They have to make sure that they deliver high availability. It's their responsibility to deliver cyber resilience at the system level. But what you do with your passwords, what you do with your employees, how you can protect that data, it's impossible for them to understand what's going on in that environment. So they leave it up to you in the shared responsibility model. But let's take a look at what this actually means. As Simon mentioned, we've talked about ransomware attacks. And that's the buzzword. That's what everybody kind of associates cyber incidents with the ransomware attack. But in reality, that's not true. If you actually look at the data from the last few years, people are successfully recovering from ransomware attacks. Why? Because the backup industry has matured. It's not just the 3-2-1 rule anymore. There's much further requirements for immutability, for clean room requirements. Organizations have defined runbooks. There's resilience testing. We can pretty much guarantee that everyone attending today has some form of an ability to recover their virtual infrastructure. But that's not where the massive attacks are coming anymore. Think about it from the SaaS side. It's not just if you make a mistake, if it's your provider makes a mistake. So think about it this way. Let's look at, for example, insider threats. If you can no longer name all of your employees, you're now an official disgruntled employee status. And this is the opportunity that they have potentially to slowly start deleting data. Imagine if somebody did that to your knowledge base or your Git repos or anything within your organization that's critical, even outside of IT in sales, marketing, and HR. But that's not it. It's also the fact that your organization can get credential harvest. There's social engineering. But here's the most important thing to talk about within SaaS: supply chain attacks. Once again, it's all about the return on investment for a hacker. Do you go and exploit individual tenants, or do you go after the entire provider? What happens to your data then? Do you have the means to recover? And when you look at the industry, specifically from a backup perspective, the average organization, they're using over 200 SaaS applications. Less than 10 are actually even supported by enterprise backup providers. And it's the usual suspects. It's M365, it's Salesforce, even Jira. But the rest of these applications are completely unsupported by the enterprise. And even for those 10 that are supported, you have to give up your backup data. You have to go and store it within a vendor. You have no real immutability options. And guess what? If the data it goes down and there's a supply chain attack, you have no access to that data. So it's very, very critical that when you think about protecting your organization, you protect all of your data. And that is HYCU R-Lock, or Resiliency Lock. It's the industry-only immutable customer-owned backups for both SaaS, cloud, and on-prem. What does that actually mean? One is total protection. In the HYCU marketplace, there are over 86 workloads. Not only critical infrastructure like Nutanix and VMware and Azure Stack HCI or Azure Local these days, but it's also your cloud services, your PaaS, your DBaaS, and your business applications like Jira, GitHub, even things like DocuSign, and new and upcoming SaaS applications like Notion. And it's 3 core things that are included in this. Policy-driven protection, that I know that if I assign a policy at a frequency that I define, that the data is protected, and I can rest assured. I own those backups. They are in my public storage, public cloud account, or even on-prem, and I know that I can enable immutability and object lock for these backups. There are no other providers in this space that are giving you the ownership of the backup, the coverage and the ability to protect and recover the data for yourself, not just add a new third-party risk just to be able to protect your data. So just to resume what the tenet of always protection is, it's making sure that your backups are resilient, the data is invisible to hackers, and that you're protecting everything, not just the virtual machines that you've been protecting for the last 20 years. Now comes the observing side of the house. And there's 3 core layers to observing. One is you need to understand what your tech stack looks like. And that sounds kind of simple, but it's not. Think about your organization. Even at HYCU, just in 1 week, we've spun up 2 new SaaS services to continue scaling our business. So what does that mean? Look outside of IT. It's not just Microsoft 365. It's not just Salesforce. Every department has a serious tech stack. We've seen CMOs with larger tech stacks than CTOs in some of our customer base. So you have to understand, what is my organization using? Have we acquired new companies? What does their tech stack look like? Are there any weaknesses there? Then you have to understand, is there something fishy going on in my application? Is somebody deleting data? Are policies being changed? And of course, you have to be able to scan for threats. So at the estate level, what we delivered here in Always Observing is what we call R graph, or resiliency graph. And it's being able to say, take a look at your organization and immediately visualize all of the services categorized by department, but most importantly, being able to say, can you recover this specific application? Do you have your own backups? Do you have an offsite backup? Have you validated this? Have you tested this? It's critical to understand which of your applications are low-hanging fruit. And this is being delivered by rgraph. But the most important piece too is being able to identify anomalies as well. Not just what am I using, but what kind of behavior is being driven? What changes have been observed in our organization as well? Now, every data protection vendor is able to do this on the capacity side. You can take a look at the change rate of your VMs, of your file shares, and of course HYCU can do that and does an incredible job as well. And Subbiah is going to cover this and also something else that we're presenting shortly. But something really, really important is what's going on with your SaaS applications. Is there any type of behavior, any bulk behavior? Is somebody changing something like an Okta policy? You need to be able to have anomaly detection that's specific to your application, and that's very critical. So understanding your data estate, very important. Understanding the behavior and the anomalies inside of the application, critical. But now it's time to have a conversation about external threats, ransomware, bad actors trying to exploit your data. And with that, Subbiah Sundaram is going to cover something very exciting here as well.
Thank you, Andy. So again, just to reiterate the point which Andy was talking about, anomaly detection, it's a very critical part because at a macro level, you'll be able to quickly identify when things are actually changing, right? Or something is off. That is something there. This is a quick way of getting to know what's happening. And the other big part here, difference, people say, oh, doesn't everybody actually have it? Most people, when they think of anomaly detection, they think in terms of the VMs and files, but very rarely do people think in terms of SaaS. And that's the big difference here. And every SaaS is different here. People have to look at SaaS from the object perspective. It's not the quantity of data in the world of SaaS. It's the objects which are more important. That's the most important thing there. Let's go to anomaly detection, right? Sorry, in malware scanning. This is a continuous thing. We talked about anomaly detection, malware scanning. Malware scanning is a very critical piece because this constantly, every attacker, this is the most common piece, and that's what people are trying to attack. When people talk about, when we say, hey, now we have malware scanning, people say, oh, doesn't everybody do that thing? You know, in the backup industry, we are traditionally, the way we always think of is everything is around the backup data, right? So the way all of the backup vendors typically have done is that, oh, all we can depend on is the backup data. They wait for the backup to happen. They took the backup data and then try to look for the data. That's a very valid approach. That's there. The problem with that thing is that, let's say your backup data is going to the cloud. Imagine retrieving the data back from the cloud to do the scanning. That just doesn't scale. That's number one. Number two, imagine your data is, a lot of times when you look at the backup appliances, they're great at ingesting the data. But if you want to retrieve it to actually do scanning on a continuous basis, that becomes very expensive and it's actually not the most efficient one. So what we thought about was like, how should we do differently and how can we help customers? That's when we said, you know what, why don't we do it at the source, the scanning right at the source in the place where, because most of the infrastructure you use today for your solutions, let's say be it VMware or Nutanix or any of the other smarter hypervisors where you have snapshot technology, or the public cloud where you have snapshot technology, or file systems we have snapshot technology, we say like, why don't we leverage that to make it much, much efficient for the customer and do it much more often? That's one of the reasons we actually decided to do this. Malware scanning very differently than other people. We do it right at the source. Again, when I say right at the source, people say, yeah, but doesn't it impact the production? Don't worry about it. That's something which one of the conscious thing HYCU does is very different. We actually take a copy, we don't impact the production, we do the scanning off the copy. That is something we leverage there, right? That's a big benefit for customers. So that's the rapid detection. The second one of our conscious things, as Simon said earlier, we as a company want to make sure customers always have control of their data. We don't want customers to lose control from that. That's one of the reasons when HYCU, we built it, we said like, you know what, that all the scanning should be done in the customer's control. We don't want to take some part of the data and ship it somewhere and then do scanning. That just, now you're starting to, the risk becomes higher for customers. We don't want that to happen. That is there. And the other thing is that we wanted to make sure this works for data on-prem as well as data in the cloud. That is something we had to do. So those are some of the things we have done. We are excited about it. This is, again, malware scanning done in a much more efficient way. We have done a lot of efficiencies. We can actually talk a lot more about it when you talk to our team. They can get a lot more in detail. The whole idea is that we want to do the scanning continuously, not just metadata, the complete data. We want to be able to do that. And we want to tell you quickly when there's a problem so you can act on it. That's something we have done. That's a malware scanning part of it, right? And this is something we're going to continuously enhance. We have actually done it for a lot of the things around Nutanix AHV, ESX, and so on. And then we are adding files very shortly, and then a lot more is coming right after that. The last one, let's talk about from a, there are three parts to it, right? We said you got to protect it, you got to continually observe it, but whatever you do, you have to be ready to recover. Because as much as you can try to prevent it, bad actors are trying to always one-up the game, right? You have to be ready to recover. When it comes to recovery, let's actually talk about the first part of it. Before the recovery, the time when you need the recovery, you have to continuously test and make sure you're confident that when something bad happens, you'll be able to get the data, right? That's the key thing there. So we end up telling customers that please continuously validate your recovery points. It's not, cannot do everything. Practically, it's not possible. What we ask people to do is on a regular basis, try random set of data on a regular recovery thing, because that's, you're doing the entire reason is you're protecting data to recover. And so you got to continuously test it. So when the bad day happens, you're always ready. That's the recovery, validate the recovery points. That's a big one. The second thing is that one of the conscious philosophy HYCU does is that we wanted to, when customers sign up for an SLA with their management, let's say, for example, when it comes to recovery time objective, how long do you actually have to recover when something bad happens? Let's say you have 2 hours, and that's what you tell HYCU. HYCU continuously monitors the infrastructure to say that you can recover within 2 hours, right? There are times you might not be able to. HYCU will immediately tell you, hey, there's a problem. Your network is probably slow. Your backup targets are probably getting slower, whatever it is, right? So it'll tell you the reason, and you should be able to fix it. That's the SLA assurance which we want to get to. And those are some of the things which we want to do. And we want to obviously test the resiliency, meaning how do you actually make sure you can recover, test your recoveries. That's getting your confidence. Now it's a question of flexibility. In case you have to recover, you want to have a choice. A fundamental thing we believe is that giving you the choice, right? Because we can't say, oh, you can recover, but you can recover only to one thing. That limits your choice, right? And not only that, when a bad thing happens, when a bad event happens, let's say an attacker comes and attacks your entire data center, parts of your data center, parts of your cloud account, things like that, you should have the ability at different places. For example, in the hybrid cloud, right? Being able to recover locally, and we want to do it fast, right? When something has gone wrong, it's there. I'll tell you a real story. There are times where one of our customers, it's an unfortunate event, they got attacked 3 times, but all 3 times because they were attacked by a nation-state actor. As you know, nation-state actors are very notorious. They attacked them, and all 3 times, we got them up and running within the next day, completely 24/7 with full performance. That is something which we are very, very happy to say. One, it's a bad thing, but at least the key thing is that customer was looking to recover quickly and without paying a ransomware, and we were able to do that. That's a conscious thing. It's not just recovering locally, right? There are times you probably, there was another instance where people try to recover, but the FBI says, stop, don't make any change. You got to put everything on a freeze. Then you still want to run your business. What do? Right? In that case, what we want customers to have the choice is recover to a complete alternative infrastructure. Could be a different hypervisor, or could be a complete clean room infrastructure running on the cloud. You should be able to do that. Those are some of the things we want to be able to provide the customers the choice. That's just not on-prem, another hybrid cloud where people talk about the same thing with flexibility in the cloud. Same region, different regions, same account, different account. That is the capability you provide. The last thing probably I want to mention in this case is around SaaS. As much as we talk about the on-prem, there are people are used to and people are conscious about it. SaaS recovery is something a lot of times people don't think of, but you need to have it, right? And this is where the question is, how do you do high-speed recovery quickly? How do you have the data ready? Granularly, the way I tell people, it's a surgical recovery. Sometimes you don't want the whole thing. You want to identify the what's attacked and give them that particular one recover there. That's the first thing. Second is, how do you give them a cross-instance recovery? Because in the world of SaaS, it's not like they can say, oh, spin up a new instance. No, you need an application. So you get your application and get them the data in a standby instance, in a sandbox instance, have it ready. Things like that we want to be able to do. The last one, which is very important, is the offline recovery. I'll come back to it. The last part I probably will tell you, the thing around the recovery part is that automation. Sometimes when bad things happen, you want to be able to recover a large portion of your data set. To do that, you need automation. And in many cases, as all of you guys as customers know, it is not recovering just the database, just the VM, so on. It's the entire stack. When people say, I want an application, it's made up of your virtual machines, it's made up of your object storage, it's made up of your database services, and probably many others, right? How do you bring the entire stack up? Can you automate it? HYCU has solutions for that, right? You can actually say, I want the entire stack, and we can get you up and running. That is choice A. Choice B is that for some customers, they say, you know what, guys, no, we actually have our own automation framework, and can you plug in, for example, Terraform providers? People want to do that. The answer is yes, and HYCU provides the APIs and the Terraform provider for you to be able to get up and running. Those are examples. The last thing I'll mention here, and before passing on to Simon, the key thing in SaaS world, a lot of times in the on-prem world, we are all used to, for example, let's say your virtual machine is down, you can actually download the image and bring it up somewhere and do something, right? Whereas in SaaS, it's a different problem. Let's say, for example, you're running Box. God forbid Box doesn't go down, but let's say something bad happens to Box. There are customers for us, for example, they have 3,000 people in their investment firm, right? For them, Box is a critical piece of infrastructure. In case Box actually goes down, 3,000 people in the company are just waiting. Hope never happens, but there are instances where the connectivity lost, things like that. So one of the key requirements for the customer is that when the application is down, they want to be able to access the data. And that's why we call offline recovery. Box is one example. Could be there are other legal applications people use. People use, for example, Confluence, things like that. There are some different critical applications. We want to provide the customer the choice of having the data offline, even when the application is down. That is something we want to be able to provide, and that's something we have. With that said, let me actually welcome Simon to actually give a quick summary of Simon.
Thank you very much, Subbiah. You know, when Subbiah, that's okay. You know, when Subbiah talks about offline recovery, I constantly think about Steve Ballmer yelling, developers, developers, developers. In my head, it's offline recovery, offline recovery, offline recovery. And let me tell you why. You know, about 3 years ago, I was on stage at the Boston College cybersecurity event with the FBI. And at the time, Director Ray was up there giving the keynote. I was the backup speaker, I think, at the end, backup, you know, tongue in jest. And I'm sitting up there, and Director Ray starts talking about a recently declassified issue that had happened in Boston. And the issue was that the Boston Children's Hospital had been attacked by the Iranian government. And they intentionally went after the operating procedures of the children who were going into hospital. And I remember the time my son was about 5 years old, and I was sitting there listening to this. And if that didn't pull your heartstrings, I don't know what does. But the idea that nation states, when Subbiah said that nation states are the toughest to deal with, he was not wrong. You know, what we're looking at now these days is not a hot war and a cold war. We're looking at a cyber war. And so when I think about what R-Shield is really designed to do, to net this out and make it very, very clear. One, it's offline recovery for SaaS. I want you to think about not just the big guys, not just your sales force. I want you to think about all of the unique SaaS tools that you use in your organizations today that protect patient data, that are keeping specific customer information that is private, medical records, legal issues, all of this within SaaS. And now I want you to imagine that for 2 hours, the source goes down. You can't access your Office 365. You can't access your box, some area, some SaaS service that has some of your most precious data. Offline recovery for SaaS is a game changer and a key part of R-Shield. Okay? The second, R-Lock, we talked about today. The idea that we have true immutable copies of our data, no matter where that data originates from. We don't treat on-prem and SaaS and cloud data differently here at HYCU. We're giving you the opportunity to put that in an immutable copy, no matter where the data originates from. Give it the same level of protection you would give your on-prem data, because this isn't 1985. If you only protect the data that comes on-prem, you're sitting on, and you throw your hands up in the air and say, well, we'll leave it to the vendor to protect the rest, it's a problem. You know, we don't talk about this a lot, but this is one of the most harrowing times for a CISO. Why? Because CISOs are being held personally liable and responsible, not just in Europe with DORA and NIST frameworks, but also in the United States. They're going to prison, and it's not their fault. So the tools that are required to protect the CISO, protect the CIO, they have not been readily available by the data protection industry at large until now with R-Shield. This is, I think, one of the most exciting things we've ever done here at HYCU, because we're taking cyber resiliency and we're saying, we don't care, we understand, we know, we acknowledge the data is not on-prem. It's in the cloud, it's in SaaS, and it's on-prem. You need threat detection, great. You need malware detection, great. Do you really want to take your metadata, ship it up to the cloud, and then do malware detection up there? Let's talk about doing threat detection at the source. Let's keep the data in your control. That's number one. Two, let's keep those copies immutable. Let's never, ever, ever give the bad actors an opportunity to come and take advantage of you. Three, backup cloaking. You know, I love the Avengers, so maybe I'm just a sucker for things that sound like superheroes. But, you know, what I love about the backup cloaking is that we are making the data invisible to your enemies. We all have seen the headlines. They go after the backup data. They target the backup data. It becomes another threat vector for you. Until now, we lock it down so that only the backup administrator has access to your most precious jewels. I believe that with R-Shield, we are going to revolutionize the way that we think about data protection, and certainly the way that we think about cyber resiliency. Everything we do at HYCU revolves around two principles. One, this is a virtual appliance. It's a hardened Linux virtual appliance. It's not hardware. Two, your data is yours. Whether it's SaaS, whether it's cloud, whether it's on-prem. Take it, put it in some Dell storage. Take it, put it with one of our partners, right? But don't let your data protection vendor tell you that they should own your data. It's yours. And it always will be with HYCU. So I want to thank everybody for taking the time to listen to us here today. I think this is one of the most exciting things we've ever announced. And it's exciting because it's going to have a direct impact on the people that matter most, our customers. If you want to buy HYCU R-Shield or take advantage of this, please speak to your Dell representative. Everything HYCU sells is sold through Dell or any of our partners. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Don Jennings, and we're going to close this out. Thank you all. Thank you very much, and welcome to a new world of cyber resiliency. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon. Actually, Simon, you can come back up. Subbiah, Andy as well. We do have time for a couple questions from the audience.
Great.
I'll start with one of the easy ones first.
Oh, I love those.
I think Andy's being mic'd right now as we speak.
Come on up.
You can just take my mic, that's fine. So the first question from Tom, do you protect Active Directory and Microsoft Entra ID?
Oh, great question. The answer is absolutely yes. In fact, with our 86 different integrations, we protect virtually everything that you'll ever use today. But certainly Entra ID, Office 365, and Active Directory are all protected by the HYCU R Cloud platform.
Great. Second question, on one of the earlier slides, it mentioned that HYCU is infrastructure-less, but the speaker mentioned a hardened appliance. Does HYCU require an appliance, or is it 100% direct to cloud? Does HYCU provide the compute and storage then?
That's a great question there. So HYCU offers actually our cloud in two different formats. One is our SaaS, which is completely hosted, managed by HYCU. The data is always with the customer. The service is managed and run by HYCU. That's number one. The second one is where the customer does what we call self-hosting, where they run the infrastructure in their infrastructure. And as Simon said earlier, it's a completely hardened appliance in that particular case. It is a virtual appliance, which they run in their infrastructure.
I think that's the key part at the end, isn't it? It's a virtual appliance. It's not, when we talk about an appliance here at HYCU, it's all virtual, it's all agentless. This is true modern data protection at the core. We do not sell an actual physical appliance here at HYCU.
And a question from Matt, what are the challenges we need to consider when we scale a platform when it comes to performance?
That's a great question with regards to performance. There are two parts to it, right? We talked about two different models. One is a self-hosted model. The other one is a SaaS model. In a SaaS model, as you could imagine, when it's a software as a service, you expect the vendor to take care of it. HYCU is truly built to be automatic dynamic scaling. That's one of the fundamental things we have done. It's designed for the cloud, like a cloud service on the cloud, right? The whole idea is that it's a service. You can turn it on anytime you want, use as much as you want. You can start with 5 VMs, 5,000 VMs, or 500 VMs, and you can spin up and down, no problem. HYCU will scale dynamically along with it. And then in case you decide to leave, you can also turn it off. I hope never happens. But the point is that it is simple up and down. HYCU does it automatically. One thing we always tell customers is that if one of the vendors comes and says, oh, you got to do sizing for your cloud, it's like, sizing and cloud don't go together, because cloud is supposed to be dynamic, right? You turn it on, use it. If you don't like it, turn it off. That's the way it should be. So that is truly there, and that's the cloud.
I would also just add that, as a SaaS service, the fact that we are natively integrated to these sources means that we actually, flex up and down with you. So if you're running us on a cloud, it's going to flex as much as Azure or AWS or Google. And we're going to leverage a lot of the security dynamics underlying in those clouds as well. So it really is probably the most flexible and scalable platform on the planet from that perspective, which is why I think every branch of the United States military has gone with HYCU, because it does flex so well, for giant organizations.
Absolutely. Just to add to that, Simon, from a performance perspective, one of the key things is that even the on-prem world, we absolutely actually, because it's running in a customer infrastructure, we give customers guidance on how to scale their infrastructure based on their thing, because they are controlling that particular one.
Great. So we have time for just a couple more questions. We'll follow up by email for any questions we don't address now. Question from Aditya. I know this is near and dear to Andy's heart. Can you shed some more light on Yara rules?
Actually, Yara rules is a common framework that is used and it's open source. But one of the things, and Subbiah actually is always talking through this and telling me this is beyond what we talk about Yara rules. Subbiah, do you actually want to provide an idea on the framework that you provide?
Absolutely, Simon. Andy. So one of the key things here is that Yara rules, as many of you know, is an open format which actually specifies how the signature of a particular attacker or a particular what you're looking for, right? That is something which is actually used by a lot of people in the industry. The key thing, the way when we do our scanning, as Andy probably would mention there, the thing is that we continuously look for the latest set of patterns, and that's how we do. So that's part of the Yara rules. But the good thing is that we realize that customers, there are times where they have unique patterns which the customer wants to identify locally in their thing. So the key thing is that you can add additional rules on the fly. The customer can actually do that. And the system will automatically use that pattern to match up all of the upcoming backups. And the key thing here is that, again, we look at the entire data set, not just the metadata. That's a fundamental part.
Not just the metadata and not just on-prem. I mean, I think this is the key again. It keeps going back to this, which is that with all the other cyber resiliency frameworks out there, they're so laser focused on VMware. And I think even as the world has progressed beyond that, I think that's the beauty of what we've seen with R-Shield. It's that we're going beyond just this, just YAR rules and just on-prem threat detection. You know, we're going to hide the data from your enemies. We're going to make sure that everything is resilient. We're going to make sure that you've got true immutability. And we're even going to ensure that you can recover your data if the service, the underlying service, is offline. So this is a true package. It's the R-Shield package. And, you know, I think it really is a game changer for us and for the industry at large.
Great. So final question, in terms of platform APIs, is it possible to put them behind API protection solutions from, let's say, F5 or Palo Alto?
Absolutely. Everything we've done is built on APIs. I think this is the benefit. This isn't a 20-year-old company. You know, we've got depth, we've got breadth, and we've got really, really great funding and investors. You know, but this was built, you know, post-cloud. This is built for the modern data estate, and as such, it's all integrated. It's all API driven. And we've got hundreds and hundreds of customers that are using each of those vendors and integrating them, you know, through an API.
Right. Well, thanks everybody for joining us today. Super appreciate it. To hear more about what we're doing with cyber resilience, in particular for R-Shield, I'd encourage those that didn't get a chance to look at the QR code. Seeing is believing, so definitely check it out firsthand. And again, thanks so much for everybody joining. We look forward to working and servicing your needs moving into the future.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.